It looks like peace. That's the illusion. The headlines say, "Ceasefire." The strikes slow down, the noise fades, and for a moment, it feels like the war is ending. But what if it's not ending at all? What if it's just pausing? Because in modern conflict, silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it means preparation. You've been trained to think wars end with agreements, signatures, statements, clear conclusions. But this war doesn't follow that pattern. Because this isn't just a war of weapons, it's a war of positioning. And positioning doesn't stop when the fighting pauses. It intensifies, quietly, behind the scenes. Because a ceasefire isn't always about peace. Sometimes it's about time. Time to regroup, time to resupply, time to reassess what worked and what didn't. That's where the real shift happens, not during the fighting, but between it. Look closer. The U.S. slows operations. Israel reduces visible strikes. Iran pulls back from immediate escalation. And it looks like de-escalation, control, stability. But underneath, nothing is resolved. The core issues remain, the objectives remain, the tension remains. And when tension remains, conflict doesn't disappear, it compresses. And compressed conflict is dangerous because it builds pressure, not visible pressure, internal pressure, strategic pressure, the kind that waits until the timing is right. That's the difference between a ceasefire and a strategic pause. A ceasefire ends intent. A pause preserves it, and right now, intent hasn't gone anywhere. If anything, it's becoming sharper, more focused, more calculated, because both sides just learned something the U.S. and Israel learned. That force alone doesn't guarantee outcomes, that even overwhelming strikes don't create immediate control, that the system doesn't collapse as easily as expected, and Iran learned that it can absorb pressure, that it can survive, that time is not its enemy, it's its weapon. That changes the next phase, because now, this isn't about testing strength, it's about refining strategy. And refined strategy is more dangerous than raw force, because it's informed, targeted, deliberate. So while the world sees a pause, the players see opportunity. Opportunity to reposition, to strengthen weak points, to prepare for the next move. Because the next move is always the one that matters most. And here's the part most people miss. A pause doesn't reduce risk, it redistributes it outward, into systems, into economies, into perception. Because while missiles stop, pressure doesn't. Sanctions remain, energy markets stay unstable, supply chains stay tense, and that tension spreads quietly through everything connected. Prices fluctuate, policies shift, allies reconsider positions, because uncertainty forces decisions, and decisions shape outcomes. That's the hidden layer of this pause. It's not inactive, it's active in a different way, less visible, more strategic, and harder to detect. Because it doesn't look like war, it looks like normality returning. But normality in this context is temporary, fragile, conditional. Because nothing fundamental has changed, the conflict hasn't been resolved, it's been delayed. And delay is not peace, it's preparation. Think about what happens next. Do both sides walk away? Unlikely. Do objectives disappear? No. Do tensions dissolve? Not without structural change. So what does that leave? Continuation, but in a different form. Less immediate, more calculated, more dangerous in some ways. Because it won't announce itself the same way. The next phase may not start with explosions. It may start with pressure. Economic pressure, political pressure, systemic pressure. Until eventually, that pressure finds a breaking point, and when it does, the conflict returns, not as a surprise, but as a continuation. That's why this moment matters, because it's easy to mistake quiet for resolution, to believe that less noise means less danger. But in modern warfare, the opposite can be true. The quieter it gets, the more strategic it becomes, because strategy thrives in silence, in preparation, in the space between actions, And that's where we are right now. In between. Not at the end, not even close. At a transition point. From visible conflict to invisible positioning. And the side that uses this pause better will control what happens next. Not the one that fought hardest, but the one that prepares smartest. Because when the next phase begins, it won't be about reacting, it will be about execution of everything that was built during this silence. So when you hear ceasefire, don't just think peace, think pause, think positioning, think preparation. Because the war hasn't ended, it's just changing form, and the most important moves are happening right now, where you can't see them. If this changed your perspective, subscribe, because the next video might change your life.